Okay, maybe the title was a little bit dramatic, but it is a very common sentiment I've seen throughout the Overwatch community that playing tank is just not that fun, especially recently in Overwatch 2. There will still be people that enjoy the new tank playstyle, so I just want to talk about tanks and the good tanks and what I feel their place in the meta is right now. And I know it's kind of poor timing to be doing this and then right when I go to record, we get a Season 8 look and they're going to buff a bunch of tanks, including Winton. But I'll include talking about that a little bit later. Starting off, I just want to talk about what I feel like are the 4 main tanks that are very strong right now in the current meta. And you can loosely categorize these tanks into 2 main playstyles. You have the Hardcore Protector tank, and then you have the I am the third DPS tank. Starting with the one that's probably more obvious, the I am the third DPS tank basically consists of just Doomfist and Junker Queen. Both these heroes perform very well because they have very high mobility as well as killing potential that lets them go in and get the initial pick to start a fight. Doomfist with, you know, his insane mobility and the acrobatics he can do, especially if you're very good at him. And then Junker Queen, with her throwing knife, you can grab someone, pull them down, and then just delete them from reality. And since getting kills is very important in Overwatch 2, heroes that are basically able to emulate DPS heroes and their ability to confirm kills are just going to be very good. Now, the other category of tank is the Hardcore Protector tanks, which are Sigma and then Reinhardt. People might be surprised to hear that Reinhardt is on this list, but Reinhardt is actually very good. But he's very good for the wrong reasons. Reinhardt is not good at being a fast brawl character, he's good at just standing in front of his team and holding up his barrier. That's quite literally all he does. It's incredibly effective, but it is certainly not fun to play as. Which is why Sigma is probably the more fun option of the two, because he can actually, you know, throw his balls at people. He can throw a rock at them as well. But both of these tanks do a very similar job of just being a frontline presence and protecting their team, while the DPS are the main ones going in and getting the kills. If you're going to be playing Reinhardt, forget everything that you knew. All you have to do now is stand AFK, hold up barrier, throw fire strike, twerk, be bisexual, eat hot chip, and lie. Those are the makings of an excellent Reinhardt player in Season 8 of Overwatch 2. And then I can't forget kind of the dark horse hero, which is Roadhog. He kind of deserves his own video talking about him, but basically he seems like he's actually really good right now. Because the tank role has just felt so not fun, my friend who normally plays tank just wanted to use a different account and just only play Roadhog and High Masters instead of playing other tanks and High GM. So I joined him and I just locked KarQ just for fun. Now the Roadhog account is higher than his main account, and my KarQ win rate is 23-8, so clearly there's something good going on with this hero duo just enabling the Roadhog. But aside from that, those 4 heroes are basically top of win rate whenever you look at it. No matter what rank you look at, it's basically always those 4 heroes in some kind of order. Sometimes another hero might sneak in, but it's surprisingly very consistent across, you know, bronze all the way to Grandmaster, that it's just those 4 heroes. Other tanks are still playable just because, you know, if your DPS heroes are getting kills and winning their duels with their counterparts on the other team, then it kind of doesn't matter what you pick. But in terms of tank matchups, if your teams are equally balanced, most tanks will just either lose to the DPS heavy tanks or just lose to a team that has their whole team standing behind a barrier. And I feel like that's kind of why the current state of tank feels so bad, is that it doesn't really feel like you're tanking anymore. At least not like it did in Overwatch 1. Overwatch 1 tanks were a massive presence on the battlefield and were easily one of the most impactful roles in the game, being able to move in, take space, and be aggressive, while also helping protect their team in the process. And the current state of tank is kind of the exact opposite of this. You have 2 main options: either play this hyper defensive barrier character that just wants to protect his team and that's basically all they do, where it feels like you personally don't have an impact over the outcome of the match, it's just all in the hands of your DPS heroes getting kills from behind your barrier. Or you have to play this insanely fast, hyper aggressive tank that just doesn't have any damage mitigation at all really, and just plays DPS. Your options for playing tank are literally just be a human barrier or be a third DPS character. Heck, I mean, even Winston a character that has been a staple throughout Overwatch's history, mainly because dive has been so strong, actually has a very low win rate, even though he would normally be at least in the middle of the pack, if not at the very top. So what was it that brought us to this new era where tanks are either human barriers or they have to play a super fast, aggressive, sweaty, third DPS try-hard playstyle? A lot of it is just power creep in the DPS role in particularly mid-range hitscan heroes. A big one was Bastion. The turbo buff that Bastion got was probably the start of it. Bastion was just a very undervalued hero. As soon as he was good, people started realizing just how good he was, and that he didn't even need any of the buffs that they gave him. He basically invalidates every tank in the game, aside from, you know, the hyper DPS tanks or the heavy defense-oriented tanks that can protect their team, who can then kill the Bastion before he's able to do too much damage. Bastion can basically just hard wall Winston. You dive the Bastion, good luck, he has damage resist and 300 health. You dive anyone but the Bastion, good luck, he's gonna delete your barrier in 2 seconds and then you're next. The other hero that kind of does the same thing is Soldier 76. Soldier 76 is basically one of the best performing DPS in the game right now. I would honestly say that he is the best. And like Bastion, he's basically undiveable because he has his healing station, which is probably the best healing ability in the game. Bap's regen burst wishes that it could be this. Just 40 health per second for 5 seconds. Basically just invalidates 2/3 of Winston's damage if Soldier just presses a button and then he can just stand there and mow him down. And also these heroes can just, you know, poke him out from range and force him to either dive with not all of his health intact, or you waste cooldowns early or have to give up on a dive completely. If a good Soldier 76 is uncontested, they make tank basically unplayable. Hence why you either need to play a super fast DPS heavy tank, or you gotta play a Reinhardt and just hold the barrier in front of your team in hopes that they can actually kill the demon known as Soldier 76. Now to talk about some of the, you know, balance related reasons why I think the tank role just has not been as much fun. I feel like a lot of it also just has to do with the Overwatch community. Like, people just blame tank diff all the time, and it definitely makes the game much less fun to play. Another thing is that you can't really do that much to win a game that's going heavily out of your favor. If your DPS are just getting steamrolled, there's not much that you can do, unless you are playing one of the hyper mobile DPS tanks. Like, if you're cracked on Doomfist, you can definitely roll out onto a Soldier 76 and get the kill. Or if you're playing a Junker Queen and you hit the knife, you can pull him down and nuke him. But as I said before, those heroes don't really feel like tanks, they just feel like fat DPS heroes. It doesn't have the same kind of appeal and fun factor that playing tank does. Or at least playing tank did for a lot of people back in like Overwatch 1. Moving on to just talking about the balance changes, I don't think that they're going to be that impactful. The Ramatra ones, maybe. Depends on how much better his primary fire gets. If he's able to actually deal with ranged heroes like Soldier 76 in a even just okay manner, I think that he'll be much more competitive as a hero. But the Winston changes, I just don't think do anything. He's still just going to be deleted by any good hitscan hero in the game. It could maybe be good against Bastion, but people aren't really even playing Bastion that much right now. At least not as often as he used to be, and at least not much in, you know, higher elo games. People have mainly just been playing Soldier 76 instead. And people forget, even Soldier 76 does like 180 damage per second with his primary, not counting the extra damage from Rocket, or the fact that he has mobility and can also heal himself and get critical hits. Soldier will still probably be insane. It's funny that probably the biggest Winston buff isn't even the Winston buff, it's the buffed Tracer. Dive heroes being horrifically broken just make Winston playable, because he pairs up well with them because he's actually able to keep up with their mobility. And the Tracer buff, I think, is a completely different problem. It's just power creep for the sake of power creep. I feel like 5.5 damage Tracer was balanced. 6 damage Tracer might be a bit too much. Kind of the same thing of Winston just being able to deal damage through armor. So I think it's fine, I guess, because it just makes him better against tanks who he already was extremely bad against. But it's also just, again, power creep for the sake of power creep instead of actually trying to address any of the balance problems that the game has. The fact that the game just has so much damage right now that as soon as people stop playing the dive heroes that have really good burst damage but not as good sustained damage and start playing more really high sustained DPS output heroes that have range to them, like, you know, like Soldier 76, Sojourn, etc., that the game just kind of becomes a nightmare, especially for tank players. I don't know. Sorry for the rant. It's kind of been a little bit unstructured. I've had a few things I wanted to talk about, but didn't exactly write it down first. But I honestly want to know what people think and what their experiences with tank have been recently. And I do hope that the changes will amount to something at least. I do just hope we don't end up with a meta where anything but dive is basically unplayable. But I mean, with new Roadhog being kind of good and could actually be a really good answer to Winston as well as, you know, Mauga being a new hero being added to the game, who is a tank. I do hope that Season 8 will hopefully at least sift up the tank meta a little bit. But I feel like without nerfs to some of the extremely high DPS heroes in the game, like Soldier 76 or Bastion, I feel like that just might not happen. And we might just end up with another season of Reinhardt Sigma just being human sealed, just protecting their team, not really doing anything on their own. Or, you know, Junker Queen Doomfist going in trying to 1v5 kill everyone with their extremely high damage and mobility. Or Roadhog just being Roadhog. I'll have to talk about him soon. So yeah, if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I just like chilling and talking about the game. So yeah, until next time, see ya.